Okay, time to undertake my kind of lunatic attempt to play all of the Space Harriers in a minimum of time. I've got the systems, I've got the games, I've got the flashcards, so figure I'll try to compare and contrast and play them all, more or less in a row. Just gotta get a few things in order first. Make sure chat's working. It is. Okay. On to our first contestant in the which is the most tolerable port of this arcade classic competition. NES Space Harrier. A rather slow incarnation of the series, but then Sega Master System Space Harriers pretty slow as well. The main problem is there's just not much going on. It is not a busy, speedy landscape. They really did recode and reshape it, rather than port the engine. And I am not a fan of playing a game of this nature with the NES controller, which is just not great for rotational movement of the sort that Space Harrier requires. Very biased in the cardinal directions. And requiring a fair amount of force. You can't take a really light touch with the NES D-pad, as you can with, for example, the Genesis D-pad. Gotta decide how much time I'm willing to give each of these incarnations of the series. Probably not do much to NES Space Harrier, given what it is. The most limited incarnation of the series on a home video game console. Though there were more limited home computer incarnations, namely Spectrum and Sharp X1. Which runs the game in text mode. Horizontal resolution of, I don't know, 80 or something? Hey, Dave Johnson. Good to see you stopping by. I'm undertaking a little challenge to myself today to play all of the Space Harriers that I own for all of the systems I own that have a Space Harrier. So, I'll see whether I can tough it out and make it through and conquer these games. As there are 9 of them that I own, which is all of the home console ports. No, I won't beat all of them, especially given that I consider NES, well, I should say Famicom. This was never released for NES. I consider, for example, Famicom Space Harrier to be just kind of unfair, SMS Space Harrier to be rather annoying. No, I'm not going to beat them all. But I will give them a fair shake. Yeah, I only really care about beating games that I respect. So, for that reason, I've beaten 32X Space Harrier, I've beaten Game Gear Space Harrier, which I consider to be the best port on such limited hardware. But, yeah, I have not beaten NES Space Harrier because, I could, of course, just cheat it. I don't feel bad about cheating games that I consider to be bad themselves. I actually kind of enjoy the music on this version, is one bit of credit I'll give it. Didn't much try to reproduce the gameplay of Arcade Space Harrier, but I enjoy its spin on the music. Strictly chiptunes, but I enjoy a chiptune. Start with the bad ones and move on to the good. Next, I think, Sega Master System Space Harrier. Hey, Jakara. Taking on a bit of a challenge today to play all of the Space Harriers I own on all of the systems for which I own a Space Harrier. For expediency's sake, in some cases I'll be using flash carts even though I own the cart, just because it's a little too much trouble to actually load up all the carts. This being just such a weak incarnation of the series, I think I'll give it just this one additional run here and then move on to two more worthy incarnations of the series. I mean, this was a quick hack job by a nobody studio to just create a semi-adequate port that sold the Space Harrier name, is what I understand. Whiteboard Interactive, I think it might have been. Whatever that is. You know, just some third party who has paid $1 to make a port of a popular series, is my impression. Bad ports are a proud tradition of the retro era. I mean, look at how tiny the dragon sprite is here by comparison with the sprite you tend to see in other versions. Poor NES just couldn't handle it. This would probably be a key use for the NES Advantage joystick. Kind of the ideal scenario. For that turbo. I don't think of turbo as something the NES gets a lot of need for. I guess because NES for me was always platformers, platformers, platformers. But this is one scenario. Ooh, should have seen that coming. There's just not much on the landscape in this version. For a game that's all about sending tons and tons of stuff flying at you, not much is flying. Not sure what the desired angle of attack is with this one. Really weird hitbox, if there is one. Yeah, I have no idea how that hitbox worked. Pillars are the real enemy, it is true. Oh, well, the mushrooms, though. Nah, the mushrooms are my favorite enemy on the good versions of this game. Oop. Weird sound effects, dueling with the music for attention. Yeah, only so many sound channels to work with. And you gotta put the sound effect somewhere. Ooh. Okay, fair enough. It's time to move on to a slightly worthier incarnation in the series. Hang up the old NES controller. Okay. Alright, and on to Sega Master System, Space Harrier. But first, controller. which will be a Sega 6 button. Oops. Okay. Shooting gallery is something I might actually be playing down the line since, yeah, I just fixed a Sega Light phaser I'd acquired, which was broken, and feel like making use of it. Okay, Space Harrier SMS. It still says press start button, even though there isn't a start button on the controller. That's kind of interesting. So everything's background tile, so no transparency. But definitely more like the arcade experience. I mean, it's night and day. It's got its issues, but definitely more akin to the real thing. Ooh. Bigger objects. More of a sense of speed. Though Harrier still moves quite slowly. Yeah, that's my biggest frustration with Master System Space Harrier is that Harrier just moves around too slow. And the bizarre mess of background tiles with no transparency overlapping each other is a bit hard to look at, but hey, it gets the job done. I'll take gameplay over looks. And yeah, those big heads, proper big heads. As close as you could hope to get. Whew. But Space Harrier 3D is the game that justifies the game being on the SMS for me. It is not just a good Space Harrier, but a great SMS game. Especially with 3D. And FM sound, incidentally. Well, I wouldn't give myself number 1 for that, but alright. I like how Harrier's foot appears to be a background tile and hence lacking transparency, like of all things. I guess he's composed of separate sprites and his, well, sprites plus background tiles, and his foot happens to be absent transparency consequently. Either that or it's just glitching, but I think most of the glitchiness of this game is by design. To some extent, given the number of animation frames you have from the projectiles, you've just kind of got to get a sense of where, in principle, the projectiles are, because you can't respond to the appearance of them. You don't see them coming at you. You just have to work like a blind man based on the notion of where they're supposed to be. Ooh, one cycled. Cool. Ooh. Got greedy trying to wipe out big floating head kind. Ugh. And Space Harrier does not have mercy. Hey, Aaron. Good to see you. Whoop. Hoo. Ha ha ha. Ooh, made it through there. Nice. Those are the moments that really make Space Harrier. Where you find a way through a crazy mess of columns. The lettuce may not be forgotten. Oh, I do like myself a good sandwich. My wife makes some delicious sandwiches. And sure, I mean, they'd be tasty regardless, but the key thing is that they're wife sandwiches. Adds a little something. Yes, indeed. You can taste the lovin'. I like me a avocado pickle and like deli meat sandwich. At some point, she just tried this, combining avocado, pickle, and deli meats with other garnishes. And oh man, that's glorious. Because the avocado's creamy, but the pickles are salty and the deli meat's salty. And the mayo is creamy. That's the key. I guess you could use guacamole as well, you know, mostly avocado regardless. Cut some work out. Yes, indeed it is. Love me some well-used avocado. This is why, as a Canadian, I'm secretly hoping that as they're pondering in the news it might, NAFTA fails, so that all of the Mexican avocados now go to Canada and all of them will be mine. This is my grand global trade strategy. All of the avocados must be mine. Too long have all the avocados been hogged by our neighbor to the south. But soon, they will be ours. Yeah, I suppose I haven't had dinner yet either. This might explain why I have talked about nothing but food, and particularly avocados, since the beginning of this stream, which is not my custom. Well, that's at least some calories. And I think the thing I like about this game, vis-a-vis NES Space Harrier, is mainly just the controller. Playing this game with a Genesis controller is so much easier. With that sweet, sweet rotational D-pad where you can just spin it continuously. Well, as for me, my favorite Space Harrier game is, I mean, it's kind of a cheap answer, but my favorite port is 32X/Saturn. It doesn't really matter which. Saturn has slightly larger backgrounds in some cases, but it might be my favorite unique Space Harrier game is Space Harrier 3D when played with 3D goggles. Even without, but especially when played with the 3D glasses. I haven't played the 3DS port of it. I gather there was one, but too new for my territory. Yeah, there are Sufficiently many that the question is almost unanswerable. Oh, that's some good death music. I feel suitably dead. Yeah, that's a great title to have. Okay, on to Space Harrier 3D, I think. Yeah, Sega was excellent at that. At releasing the same game to just about everybody. I appreciate that unlike Nintendo, they were, quite willing to let everybody be part of the game and port their 80s arcade games to just everything. Okay, Space Harrier 3D. Which, as I say, is one I quite like. I think I'll have to switch my stream to 30, or well, my stream capture to 30 FPS so that it doesn't look like a nightmare. Da-da. There we are. So effectively the stream is looking at only one eye of the game. While I put on my 3D glasses. Hey, thanks for the follow, Red Sniper 1. Incidentally, I'm not going to be able to see chat while I've got the 3D glasses on, so I'm going to be out of the picture for a little here. So you can all, like, say nasty things about me and that kind of thing. It takes a little to get used to the 3D effect. It doesn't really click, I find, immediately, but it really looks good once it kind of clicks. Oh. Just took a peek. Well done. Also, we have here, incidentally, FM audio, as my SMS is FM audio modded. So that's why you get those wow wow rather than beep boop. Classy 8-bit lounge music. I've been thinking I really ought to mod my Master System to add a pause button to my controller. It would make things kind of more convenient. Since, of course, the SMS has a pause button just on the unit itself, so it's just a matter of wiring up one of the pins on the controller port, I figure. some arbitrary pin, hook it up to some arbitrary button, and there you go. I do enjoy the FM version of the soundtrack for this game, but I like the PSG version as well. I have a real soft spot for the Sega Master System and Game Gear PSG music, especially because I'm a huge TI-99 4A fan, and it's the same chip, so sounds much alike. Oh god, these owls. The 3D effect is really just fantastic. The fact that it lives up to its goals in the present day is kind of remarkable. And it makes the game genuinely easier, because, I mean, the problem with Space Harrier for SMS is really that it's hard to tell how far away things are with the limited animations, but put it in 3D, and you can tell how far things are away. They are exactly how far away they appear. The only downside to the 3D is precisely because the shutters on the glasses are opening and closing 60 times a second. Much of the time, they are effectively closed, and so they darken the picture. Just because your eyes are staring at closed shutter, 50% of the time. There's no way to get around that, really. Bits. Bits is cool. Demonstration of how this game really thought outside the box as far as adding its own imaginative contributions to the series. New enemies, new aesthetics. And new sounds. Whew. Somehow I avoided those. Okay, not bad. What I should really do is, yeah, you look too cool, yeah. Yeah, ought to just walk around the city with these on, so everyone can know all the time how cool I am. Would not look like a dork at all. Okay, I think my goal here is just to top the high score list. I'll call it a day here if I can succeed in just getting the #1 high score. It's one of the nice things about games like Space Harriers. I feel like it's hard, but you don't feel beaten down by how hard it is, because it's kind of the idea that you're going to die all the time. The idea isn't you're going to make it all the way through the game. easy as pie, so there isn't that psychological weight of loss with these arcade games. Just playing for the high score is a comfortable business. Didn't get any of those guys, though. Better destroy some local vegetation to make up for it. Turn this planet into a barren wasteland. But yeah, that's definitely key to the arcade experience as well, of course. Boy, it's been bringing me back, in particular, recently playing House of the Dead, and actually even playing a little with my wife on Saturn. That has brought me back to the joy of the arcade experience in that last era of the arcade in the late 90s. Because, you know, there wasn't much left as far as the relevance of the arcades to popular culture, but somehow House of the Dead managed to capture the attention of the public. And yeah, that's so that experience is a fond memory. Hanging out with friends at, for me it was the local movie theater, had a little arcade, and playing House of the Dead. As indeed a social activity. These guys are bad news. But, well, that was pretty good. Yeah, this run's been going well. Famous last words. It's funny, I find this game so relaxing sometimes. It's, and sometimes I'm, you know, got my heart running 1,000 beats a minute and sweat on my brow. But yeah, this is one of those times I just feel like I'm in the groove. Okay, good stuff. But yeah, I don't know where the arcade scene will go down the road, but it seems like VR is definitely giving it a bit of a boost. You actually get indie arcades, VR arcades, effectively. And, I mean, the criticism was early on that VR was kind of an asocial experience, but I'm finding that people are considering it less so and less so the case, just because it's fundamentally fun to watch your, like, watch your friends run around in a horror house dodging zombies in VR, you know, with, from your point of view, bunch of technology headgear on their head from their point of view, a shotgun in their hand. The kind of the distinction between those experiences makes it fun. Kind of get to laugh at the guy jumping away from a zombie while he's standing with a bunch of headgear in a video arcade. and then share that experience by having it yourself. Ooh. Well, that was an unfortunate bits. Oh, and again, number 2. I think I gotta go for another run to try to get that top spot. Kill all the things. Oh. Maybe not all the things. Maybe not quite so aggressively. Okay, that was some good points there. Gotta rack 'em up if I want to make that number 1. Ooh. Well. Maybe this isn't the run. But yeah, each of those things gives a ton of points. The TIE fighters, effectively. Totally not a stolen graphic. Huh, that was quick. Those things have a pretty slim hitbox, so it's not easy to get hit by them, but on the other hand, you can't take it for granted. Oh, ha ha ha! Cut the accidental continue. Whatever the key code is with which that is affected, I cannot recall. Alright, I'll take it. Since it's effectively random chance. Given that I don't actually know the series of keys. And I'd like to beat Bits and get on to I cannot remember the next stage's name. Oof. Oh, didn't see that one coming. Green background, green projectiles. What can I say? Button mashing. Okay, well, no lives, but see how far I can get through bits, and then on to the next one. Dangerous to destroy these objects here because they kind of, by their destruction, block your vision. Then the non-destructible ones come at you. Okay, fair enough. My 3D glasses go back in their holster. And onward. Off with the Sega Master System and on to the PC Engine version, which is pretty much a straight-up port, but given the limitations of the platform, a limited one. And what controller do I want to play with? I guess a standard PC Engine controller. And the necessary extension cord, since PC Engine controllers have tiny cords, since they're from Japan. Okay, there we are. And there we are. Okay. Haven't played this one in a while. All right. That was a rather difficult to make out welcome to the family. But yeah, what this version has got over everything up to the point of its release in history is just speed, speed, speed. It manages arcade speed as no other previously had. It feels like Space Harrier. Ooh. I mean, the difference between the speed at which Harrier moves in this one and the speed at which he moves in SMS Space Harrier is pretty emphatic. And we've got the dragons correctly represented, proper transparency. Destroy everything. Whew, that was close. And yeah, we've got proper sprite scaling. Not perfect. It's not, you know, Saturn version sprite scaling. It's not arcade sprite scaling. But it's enough. Enough iterations of each sprite. And some really pretty enemy graphics. I mean, those aliens and mushrooms really look nice. Oof. Do not get on the high score list, alas. Should have taken note of what the high score list requirements are. Hoop. Being a little daring in pursuit of those high scores. Gonna try to destroy what I may. Whoop, that was close. But responsive control wins the day. Yeah. Hit up at the top of the screen where I couldn't hit him. That's cheating. Okay, solid stage 1. Okay, good points there. Whew. Whew. Yeah, this has got the arcade feel. And the arcade murderousness. Ah, over 3 million though. Feels like a good score. Oh, well, 3.2 million. See where that places itself on the high score list. Nowhere? 4 million is the entryway to high scores. That seems fair enough. So 4 million we aim for. I think that's the goal. Oh. Gotta aim for the prize, though. Don't let those deaths get me down. Let's see what I can do with no lives. The number of permitted projectiles in this game is also impressive. It's lets you fire off a fair number. I mean, the number of projectiles you're allowed in the SMS version is pretty pitiful. The natural function of the system. Only so much you can do on the hardware, but here, much more freedom. Ha! And this is where we start feeling like the true arcade version with that speed. Ooh. Their motion is pretty erratic. Okay, I think that's a fair shake to PC Engine Space Harrier, so on to Space Harrier 2, which you had mentioned, M. Dot. Just connect my Genesis controller here. Power off the PC Engine, and on with the Genesis. Yeah, my feelings on Space Harrier 2 are complex in that I feel like it could have done more with the hardware. The sprite scaling is still there, and you really feel it. So I just wish it were more than it is. But at the same time, the art style and the additions to the character of the game are, and in particular, the ability to start at any stage. Those are all appreciated. Yeah, the ability to select a stage is definitely cool. But yeah, very cool enemies, very cool animations. Yeah, and cool music. So it's kind of, in these respects, the opposite of PC Engine Space Harrier, whose merits are technical. On the hardware, it does an incredible job of replicating the arcade experience to the extent that was any way to do that. This more so is an exhibition of new art styles, new music, which doesn't attempt to ape the arcade original, and technically isn't as impressive for the hardware, but is enjoyable for what it is. And yeah, it's very creative. The indoor levels. Always fun.
Get ready.
I'm always ready. Always ready to play some Space Harrier. And to die rapidly many times in a row. Ooh.
Get ready.
Yeah, I don't
Get
know the
ready.
patterns for this stage. You kind of get into the pattern of things. Yeah, the Medusa face is pretty creepy. And this is pretty creepy, alright, as well. I don't think I played any games that creepy when I was a kid, but I was a little before this time, so... I mean, TI-99 4A was my major childhood system, and there wasn't much creepy for that. Maybe Tunnels of Doom, which was an RPG. Ah, pillars. Good old pillars. That doesn't deserve a number 1 on the high score sheet. This is a very permissive high score sheet. But yeah, it needed to be toned down a little bit as far as the murderousness of the arcade original goes for a Genesis-specific home release.
Get ready.
This is the incarnation of the game that I've played the least of all of them. Which probably I should correct.
Get ready.
Hello, weird death turtle. Whew. Just missed them.
Get ready.
Yeah, I keep letting these guys get me. Yeah, you kind of have to come up with your own names for the enemies in Space Harrier. Ugly pig face things or along the lines.
Get ready. Get ready.
Get ready to die. Hope you enjoyed the last one. But yeah, the level selection is definitely a positive feature for the sake of kind of home accessibility here. Okay, one more run here. And then on to Game Gear Space Harrier, I think.
Get ready.
Might as well destroy the foliage, as is Space Harrier tradition. Well, not hard to take him down. Wonder if it's possible to one-cycle him. Probably technically.
Get ready.
I appreciate the fact that it displays your top score. That's helpful. Since that's what the game's about after all. Beating yourself. Whew.
Get
It does
ready.
have the into the screen speed right. I will give this incarnation of the series that.
Get ready.
Yes, he is a fast runner. He's very good at harrying. Whatever harrying is. Indoors. I love/hate the indoor levels. Who? And then these dudes are kind of harrying me. I'm supposed to be the harrier here. Who do they think they are? Seems to me you want to kind of continue moving up to this point around here and then just spam as he retreats. Is the strategy with him. Ah, the robots. Robots are the worst. In the arcade accurate versions, anyway.
Get ready.
One life left?
Get
One
ready.
life left. Ooh. Sad death music. Oh well, the high score screen thinks we did well, and that's what matters. Okay, on to Game Gear Space Harrier. For which I've got my own weird little solution as far as input and signal output go, so hopefully that all works out. I haven't played my Game Gear in a month or so. Yeah, looks good. The controller is a custom mod of a Sega Genesis controller, 3-button controller, and I've added a start button, rigged up a start button for the Game Gear start button. Otherwise, you can do a simple controller mod of a Game Gear to use a Sega Master System controller, but I wanted to have the start button since you need it for some games. Not most, but some. Also, the Sega Master System controller's D-pad is just garbage, so... Also, being able to play Game Gear on a TV is sure nice. So while this version... Oh, I'm going to turn down the volume a little here on my headset since it's blaring at me. It's a problem with running a bunch of different systems. They all output volume a little different levels, and so switch between them. And you may have to mess with the mixers. Naturally, the Game Gear only outputs at 288p, I think it is, which is why it's only displaying as a portion of the screen there, on both the analog screen and the digital capture. So, yeah, in one sense, yes. This obviously is not the optimal version of Space Harrier, but in another sense, because the viewport is so small, Space Harrier actually moves faster with respect to the Sega Master System version. So this is like basically a port of the Sega Master System version for Game Gear resolution with added colors, utilizing the Game Gear palette. So the colors are a little more vibrant. But by virtue of that fact, you actually feel, or I feel, as if Space Harrier is kind of faster, because just with the viewport being so small, he moves across the screen quicker. Consequently, that having explained, I consider this better than the Master System version. Actually, I'm going to try to switch my Game Gear to 480p output mode. Let's see if that'll work out. Oh, well. Something funny going on there. Oh, I've just got scanline mode on. But no, that's not going to work on my PVM. Yeah, the McWill mod that I'm using is capable of upscaled 480p output, but that won't work on my PVM. As I've got the signal for my PVM going to my PVM before I combine sync for capture. If I had it going to the PVM after I combine sync for capture, it would work. VGA using separate horizontal and vertical sync signals, whereas broadcast video uses combined horizontal and vertical sync signals. So ne'er the twain shall meet, but converting simple. As a handheld treatment as well, this one, I think, gets reasonable points. I mean, you're just willing to give it more of a pass when you're holding it in your hand. Taking an arcade game, taking an arcade hit, and having it in a little handheld you can take around with you, well, you're going to live with less and more. And not many people had Turbo GTs back then, so they could play proper Turbo graphics games on the go. I did beat this game a while back. This version of Space Harrier did beat Game Gear Space Harrier. Put the time in, gave it its due. Not gonna give it too much due today. Who? Gonna move on to the genuine quality versions shortly. Although I consider the PC Engine port / TurboGrafx port to be a quality port. And yeah, Space Harrier 2, while not a port, is a respectful treatment. Why is this dragon a woman with hair is what I want to know. These are the questions we try not to ask when playing Space Harrier. Why is anything is a bad question when playing Space Harrier? First bad move, trying to make sense of the backstory in the manuals. Something about fantasy zones and saving dragons, despite the fact that the entire game consists of attempts to murder dragons. I think it hasn't got its story straight. The guy who is tasked with writing the manuals for these games and, like, sticking in 2 pages of backstory must have been laughing his ass off. Just play the game a bit and come up with something while high as a kite. Okay, one more run of this, then we're on to 32X. Oh yeah, the Americanizations indeed. But one more run of Game Gear Space Harrier, then on to the very worthy 32X Space Harrier. Yeah, these early versions of the game really are all about learning the patterns. You just keep on moving and you keep on moving in the right pattern for the stage and all goes well. I don't remember the patterns though, so it's not too easy off the bat. Yep, slow circles are definitely the basic pattern. Some stages you have to do a kind of figure eight though. At least in arcade accurate versions. In particular, I find the stages with the robots in the arcade accurate versions tend to require figure eight. Okay, fair enough. On to 32X. Get my Game Gear controller hung up here. I should still be plugged in for, yeah, still plugged in for my Genesis controller. And the first great home version of Space Harrier to get everything straight. Well, the first great home video game console version, given that it had been done on computer, respectfully in Japan.
Welcome to the family. Get ready.
Ooh! Oh, that was close. Yeah, tripping can get you killed. It's got the speed. It's got Harrier moving the right speed. It's got the backgrounds moving towards you at the right speed. It's got all the world objects. It's got the sprite scaling. Yeah, this is the real thing.
You're doing great.
Whew. Yeah, 32X is definitely getting a lot more attention these days. They've gone up in price quite a bit. And I appreciate that they're getting that attention. Not that they're more expensive, though it doesn't particularly impact me. But with a Mega EverDrive, I mean, for all the 2 rare games for the system, well, there's that. I'm using a Mega EverDrive here just because I'm too lazy to plug in the cart. Well, yeah, I mean, that's just home video game console versions, strictly speaking. There are 9 versions that I own, and there were computer versions for most computer platforms of the era as well.
Get ready.
I mean, Sega was very willing to port their IPs to just anything in those days.
You're doing great.
Yeah, Sega seems like it's on the up and up generally. Love the sense of speed in these interior levels. Don't like getting murdered by them, but, well, you gotta live with it.
You're doing great.
And the weird-ass bonus stage, where we ride this thing to destroy trees for some reason.
You're doing great.
I love that first blockade in this level. Kind of a bit of a screw you, since if you don't see it coming, you're pretty likely to just run into it.
Get ready.
And if you're eminently used to the game and do know it's there, you're likely to feel like a complete idiot for not preparing for it. Ooh.
Get ready.